Hello, Internet. The Morgan You Know podcast network presents Balls and Brew.
All right, we are back. Yes, hello, another episode of Balls and Brew. My name is Rod Morgan. I will serve as your host. This podcast is executively produced by James Jamriska. And joining me, as always, you just heard from him, but he's my co-host. He's down there in North Carolina. It's Chris King. Chris, hello.
How's it going, Rod?
I am excited to do one of my favorite things here on Balls and Brew or the Morgan You Know, whatever podcast it happens to be, and that is bring in our first inductee into the Morgan You Know Podcast Hall of Fame. We love him to talk basketball with us. He is a Holy Cross priest. He is the director of campus ministry at the University of Notre Dame and the chaplain of the men's basketball team, and our favorite guy to talk hoops. It's Father Pete McCormick. Father Pete, hello.
What's up, everybody? Thanks so much. I'm so honored to be back on a Hoops podcast. This is great.
Well, I want to start here. Let's try and touch on the two teams that we just said goodbye to, and then we'll talk about the two teams that are sticking around. And longtime listeners of this show, Father Pete, I'm sure are excited for your thoughts on Luka Doncic because they know that you have been a Luka fan since way back. So I know they're excited to get there. But first, let me ask you this: the Phoenix Suns lost because they were actually overrated and not the best team in the NBA.
I think that's false. I don't think that's fair. I think that they're the best team in the regular season. And the NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs prove this to be the case, that there's two different seasons, ostensibly. And I think the Phoenix Suns were the best. They were the most disciplined. They were able to put it together most frequently, and that should be commended. But it is not the same rhythm and dynamic that you would otherwise encounter in the playoffs. These best-of-7 series, as Luka pointed out, it's not so much about who did the best in the regular season. It's a completely different animal. So I don't want to take anything away from the Suns and what they accomplished. The discipline, the professionalism required in order to do what they did was really great, but it's just not playoff basketball.
Chris, let me ask you this. Now, I totally agree with what Father Pete's talking about there, that there are different games in the playoffs and the regular season, and you and I will talk about this from time to time too, but don't you kind of feel like the Suns were still sort of even labeled as the favorites as we went into these playoffs, and were certainly still picked by everybody to win that series, right? And so What I wonder is, were they just overrated, right? Did we just have Phoenix wrong? Because the team that's going to lose in the second round of the playoffs as the number 1 seed to the number 4 seed, we're going to call that team overrated.
I would call that series an upset. I can't say that Phoenix was overrated because they had done the job. They had proven themselves to the regular season to get into the playoffs. We had seen how well that team can play and perform. We definitely didn't see it in 4 games during the series, especially Game 7. And that's what's disappointing, is that Game 7, the complete... And there was a complete lack of effort in that game. And that disturbed me a little bit. And, we don't know. It's internal, but something's going on, and there will be a change. They have some off-season decisions to make that aren't going to be easy.
Oh, absolutely. Father Pete, I wanted to ask you this. What's it kind of like being on a bench on a game that's getting a little bit out of hand, right? Like what's that kind of feeling like? Does that thing kind of just spiral and eat on itself? Like, do you almost not blame Phoenix for putting up a fight, or are you just as disgusted as Chris was on that?
I wholeheartedly agree with Chris that, look, to play the game of basketball is to know that at some point your star's not going to have it. He's either not going to be able to put the ball in the bucket, or is in foul trouble, or whatever the case might be. And you accept that as a hooper. That's part of the deal. But on a Game 7, when you've got the sheer amount of dollars on that court, that they didn't have the tenacity to they allowed their opponent, one singular opponent, to outscore them in the first half. That is just inexcusable. So I don't know what happened there. But, when you're thinking about the course of a regular season, or even I would imagine an early phase of a game, kind of a series of 7, you sometimes just accept the fact that it wasn't working. What to me is most painful, and I think, Chris, this is what you're getting at as well, was just the lack of effort. Like, they just didn't care, seemingly, or weren't willing to try, and were already thinking about what their vacation plans were. To me, there's going to have to be some real looking in the mirror here and asking themselves, like, what exactly happened?
No, here's what's going to happen with Phoenix. Let me allow me to give you guys a little bit of a preview here. Okay, his name's Robert Sarver, the owner of the Phoenix Suns, and guess what? He's
Yes.
absolutely not going to do spend any more money to get that team over the hump. He's not interested in doing any of that. Guess what happens when Chris Paul is on your team for a couple of years? It starts to run a little bit thin. Also, seemingly, Chris Paul turned 37 years old, and then absolutely that was the day that it snapped and he became 37 years old. So I believe Phoenix has big time problems moving forward. Here's the other thing that I want to say about Phoenix. I'm just going to come out and say it here, all right? Kawhi Leonard, injured last year. Anthony Davis, injured last year. Jamal Murray goes down, injured last year. These are all three teams that Phoenix beat on its way to the championship last year. And then the regular season, you guys are absolutely right. Phoenix put up the greatest record in the regular season. Congratulations. You know what happens a lot of time in the regular season? Guys from the bottom of the bench play. Guys don't play because they're sitting out. Teams are playing their fourth game in 5 nights. Teams are playing back-to-back nights. What I'm saying to you is that many of those Phoenix wins are faulty. They don't count. And more people should have smelled this Phoenix thing out instead of just constantly predicting them as the favorite through these first two series. Because they thoroughly got outplayed, Chris. They got thoroughly outplayed. They lost 4 out of the last 5 games of that series.
If you're going to throw away Phoenix wins, you have to throw away wins for every other NBA team that has to go through the same exact thing during that regular season.
What I'm telling you is I think sometimes that does happen, okay? I think the Lakers were still predicted to beat Phoenix last year by most of the basketball experts, even though they were the lower seed. I think we got duped by Phoenix. I think we should have seen this coming. That's my take.
One thing that didn't happen consistently in this year's playoffs compared to last year was my boy DeAndre Ayton. He definitely didn't show up in Game 7, but he's shown why he's still inconsistent in this year's playoffs. Like, he took that big leap forward last year, really made a difference for that team, especially getting to the finals. And this year they needed that, especially with Paul being hurt. And that's another thing. They're going to have, if Paul keeps playing, they're going to have to manage him, not let him play 35 minutes a night.
They're in trouble. They have to play him 35 minutes a night because they got nobody else that can initiate offense. Phoenix is in trouble.
Yeah, it's not great. Like, they are going to be in the luxury tax next year. It depends what happens with Ayton, how much they're going to be in the luxury tax. And these guys are still young, and besides Paul, who they have guaranteed for 2 more years and an option for a third year, like, that's over $30 million each year.
His contract does go down, though. Actually,
it's $28 million next year. It's $30 million.
Was it go the other way? It was low just this first year.
Yeah, and then 28, then the 30, and then that third year option is also 30, but that's non-guaranteed at least.
I was gonna say, guess what's gonna happen in that non-guaranteed year?
Well, yeah, but that's still then them 2 years over the luxury tax. If they get another
they're not going to sign Ayton.
That's
going to be one way that they're going to sneak around the luxury tax. They're not going to sign Ayton. They're not going to bring back Crowder at whatever contract they had to sign him to bring him in. You know, I mean, that's what's going to happen with this Phoenix.
They're going to have to do a sign and trade with Ayton if they want to get any kind of return. And the problem is his defensive capabilities. You can't. It's so hard to going to be able to replace his presence in the paint with just one guy. You know,
well, that's fine. I think we spent a little bit too much time on Phoenix here. We have plenty of time to still get into the Phoenix Suns offseason of it. Let's touch on the Eastern Conference team that we're no longer seeing anymore, and I want to ask you it this way. The Milwaukee Bucks lost because Chris Middleton was injured. Father Pete, what do you say to that?
True. I mean, he averaged, last playoffs, I think he averaged 24 points a game. You know, I mean, as much as you'd like to say that some of the reserves that they're able to pull in can begin to augment some of that or create some of that offense. Chris Middleton is an elite scorer. And what Giannis needed was someone else who could initiate the offense. Everything was flowing through him in a way that just wasn't helpful. So I think the answer is absolutely true.
Chris, let me ask you this one. The Milwaukee Bucks lost because of Mike Budenholzer's refusal to change his defensive strategy.
No, I think you're wrong on both those counts. The Milwaukee Bucks lost because they can't shoot. All right? The object of the game is to put the basket in, or the ball in the basket, and they definitely show they have an issue with that. Even with Middleton in the lineup, they're not that much better. He's a career 30% three-point shooter. You can't win in today's NBA making 4 3-pointers over an entire game. You got to be able to shoot.
So you don't think the fact that Milwaukee was just giving Boston absolutely any open three-pointer that they wanted, and sooner or later, water was going to find its level, and it absolutely showed itself in Game 7, you don't think that factored in? You think it was just absolutely, if the Bucks scored more points, they were going to be the team to win?
I'm just saying that if you let that team shoot 55 threes, that's a problem with your defense. But that didn't happen the whole series. That was just one game.
The Celtics shot 50 three-pointers in the first game. Budenholzer was giving them the same amount of three-pointers every game. It just so happened that finally in Game 7 came around, Grant Williams decided to become Steph Curry, another shooter from Charlotte, and he lit it up in the Celtics. Now, listen, I believe the Celtics may be a better team.
The Bucks shot 12% from three-point range over the whole series, where Boston shot 37%.
Listen, what I would tell you is I believe the Celtics are the better team, and both of those things are true. I think that this series would have been even razor more thin than it was with Middleton there, perhaps even the Bucks being on top, because the better team doesn't always win a playoff series. That's just not how it works. And Budenholzer absolutely was a little too stubborn. He was all feeling himself. He won the championship last year. He got to give everybody the middle finger last year after people calling for his job for 2 years. So he absolutely was like, no, I got this. We're fine. And it absolutely buried him. But the Boston Celtics moved on to face the Miami Heat. We'll touch back on them. But Father Pete, we teased at the beginning. Let's get to it. Let's get to the Luka talk. Your guy, you told us he was going to light the NBA on fire, and here we are. He finally is past the second round, and I'm just going to go ahead and tease this right now. I think the Mavericks are going to beat the Warriors.
Wow. I love that. I love that thought. I don't know that I agree. Because I just think that the Warriors got that championship pedigree top to bottom. You've got the Draymonds, the Stephs, the Clays, and then you throw in, the Wigginses of the world. And who's my guy from Michigan that's having a breakout year that all of a sudden I'm blanking on? Jordan Poole. So like to me, and then Steve Kerr is just a world-class coach. He's got a great coaching staff and a culture. However, what I would say is that defensively, what Dallas is doing is so impressive. And I think to myself, if you give that Dallas coaching staff 7 games to try to figure out a way to strategize against Golden State, there could be something really interesting, which then gets me, speaking of interesting, gets me to Luka. I mean, everything that could be said has been said about Luka Doncic. So I risk just repeating the talking.
But I will pat you on the back again. You were an early adopter, right? You're not the one to pat yourself on the back, but I will pat you on the back. You were an early adopter. You were in on Luka even perhaps before I was.
Yeah, what I just saw in him, and what I continue to see in him is that he's a proven winner. My only critique of Luka is that he kind of turns it on and off. But right now you've got Luka in on mode, and I would say to the NBA world, look out, because there's no fight he's willing to kind of like take on. And there's very little that he's willing to back down from. And so I don't think if there was any team that had to kind of ultimately line up against the juggernaut that is the Golden State Warriors, it's Luka, because he's seen every type of defense that they could throw against him. And he's been playing this game since he was a teenager at a really high level. And so I think he's one of those guys that not only elevates his own game, but is able to kind of make his teammates better and gives them confidence. So I think that the temptation's going to say, as I indicated, that, Golden State's got the NBA championship pedigree, but I think confidence plays a big factor. And so to me, Rod, your proposal is really kind of interesting, one that I want to watch and see how it plays out.
I'm all in. The Mavs are going to beat the Warriors. I think the Mavs are absolutely going to beat the Warriors. I love that you brought up the defense there, because Chris, I know you. I know that it is not lost on you that Dallas is a great defensive team. Golden State is actually a sneaky, very good defensive team, and we know how good the Celtics and the Heat are at defense. So here you are, Chris. It's your Final Four, the defensive matchups you always dream of. We're seeing them right now in the conference finals.
Yeah, and I tell you what, before the playoffs started, I did not expect this type of defense from Dallas. I mean, I thought they were probably capable of it, but I did not expect it, especially what they did to Phoenix. Like, Phoenix had trouble all series long, except for maybe a couple games, and that it was so.
The first 2 games it looked bad. Luka was being picked on. It looked bad, and then like they just flipped a switch.
It's been so impressive. I love it. I love defense in the NBA. I wish they would let them be more free. They're already starting about another rule change that's going to do it. There's sometimes that I do hate seeing like what we saw that game one where there was 65 or 66 free throws between both teams on like 49 fouls and the last Boston game, and like
Jimmy
that
Butler
just
had 19 free throws himself.
that's just horrible basketball to watch. I want to see good defense. I want to see players getting those stops, getting the steals, getting the blocks, shutting down passing lanes, not letting shooters get open looks, and that's what they have to do against Golden State. Golden State is sneaky defense, like you said, but they're known for their offense. You got to stop the shooters. That starts with Steph. And if you make him flustered and he is off and hitting below 35%, Dallas has a chance every game.
Father Pete, I'll go back to you on this. I'll be wrong if Klay Thompson continues to play like the Klay Thompson in the final game of the previous series for the Warriors. If Klay Thompson continues to play like that, I think you're going to be absolutely right. But answer me this. How worried are you about a guy named Reggie Bullock and a guy named Dorian Finney-Smith, who are not household names, but those guys are big, rangy, athletic wings who can hopefully run out and maybe make Steph Curry think for an extra half second about some of those shots?
I think you're absolutely right on that. I think that those two guys, Bullock and Finney-Smith, are just, first of all, they're snipers. They're absolute snipers.
And they're
But
shooting
then
like
second of all,
40% too. You're right.
yes. But secondly, they have no issue using those big rangy bodies and getting up underneath shooters. And we know what shooters hate. They hate that action. They want space. They want enough time to catch, set their feet, set their shoulders, and go. And those two players in particular are going to be really good at making Steph maybe take one more step, or making Klay just kind of readjust his stance just a little bit. And every time you do that, when you've got shooters from distance, that plays to your advantage as a defender.
I will let the listeners know that we are currently recording this podcast as Game 1 of the Western Conference records. So you guys will know more about how Game 1 goes in the Western Conference than we do. We of course know how the Celtics game went last night. But yeah, I mean, Chris, what do you think about me picking the Mavericks to beat the Warriors?
I am hoping that happens. That means that the Warriors will probably win because it's the one team I don't want to come out of the West. And I really thought Memphis was going to take care of them, but that series did not go as well as I wanted. I don't like Draymond Green. I'm not a big Golden State fan. Steph Curry is phenomenal. I think he has definitely altered the way the NBA is played. But he's had his time. Let Luka get his.
All right, let me ask you this, Father Pete. This will be the last thing we'll say on this series. Let's try to get you on my camp. For the Mavericks to win, who needs to have the second best series for the Mavericks?
Oh, it's Brunson. I think Jalen Brunson has to play dominant basketball. He has to do a great job shutting down Steph as best as he can, and he has to initiate much of the offense for Luka. If it's all Luka all the time, I think he wears down. One of the critiques I would offer of Luka is that sometimes his conditioning is not great, and certainly if it looks like he's just fine right now, but he's going to need someone like Jalen Brunson to continue to stay on the tear that he's been on, frankly, all season. And it feels like, and I'm just going to give a shout out to Jay Wright at Villanova. I just think that Brunson, who's a Villanova guy, has got the pedigree, knows how to win, and is going to do really well when the stage gets bright. So I think Brunson's got to be your guy.
I like that you brought up the conditioning for Luka, because, Chris, I want to pose this your way. Do you believe that this run will finally make Luka be a little more motivated to come in at the beginning of the year next year in better shape, better condition, so that he doesn't start to run down at the end of the games? Or do you think he's just going to go the other way and double bird everybody and be like, see, I don't need to do anything. Look, I finally did it.
I think he's going to be closer to the double bird.
I think you're right.
Luka has always proven that he's just going to do what he wants to do. He's going to enjoy his off time. And yeah, I know it frustrates us every year. He gets off to that rough start, the slow start. He looks sluggish, big, slow. But hey, if he looks right on form right now, so
right.
maybe that's where it's at. Like if he can keep Dallas in the top 4 seeds of the West, then we may have a whole lot more of this to come.
Basically, I'd like Luka to get in shape because Chris, we all know how much fun I had with the Joel Embiid MVP bet last year, and I just like Luka to be in shape because I think you're still going to get Luka at positive money because basically anybody you bet for MVP, you're getting at positive money. You know what I mean? Because they have a one and however many players in the NBA chance. But I'd like to place some money on Luka, future MVP. So Luka, if you're listening, and I know you probably are because you don't have anything going on right now, get in shape in the off season. All right?
We know Luca listens, all right?
That's
Because
true.
it was before last season. I went hard on Luca, saying how he couldn't shoot in Dallas and maybe he needs to get out. And ever since then, he has improved that and improved Dallas phenomenally. So
There we
we
go.
know that he listens, and he does this just to prove me wrong.
All right, then maybe let's see if we can have the power of the podcast in the Eastern Conference Series because I think listeners will know I am a Celtics guy. Growing up with Larry Bird being on the Boston Celtics and Larry Bird being Indiana's favorite son, I was just always kind of drawn to the Celtics, knowing they were great, the green uniform, something about it. So I'm definitely pulling for the Celtics in this series. I will say, however, I kind of thought they'd probably lose game one. And then we received word that Marcus Smart and Al Horford weren't going to play. So, Father Pete, do you think that that's really all that was going on for Boston? Quick turnaround, two starters out, or do you think maybe I have a little more to be worried about?
No, I actually think you're in a really good spot. This is going to be a 7-game series, and I think it's Boston's. I really do think that Boston's they just have the look. Now, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth because if those two don't come back, if they wait till like a game 3, then to me, that's a lot of momentum. Now the good news is that you still got the chance then to play 2 games in Boston in front of those fans, and they know how to root on their team. But Miami's such a well-disciplined and good coach team. It's not outside the realm of possibility that they pick up at least one while in Boston. So I don't know that this is a team, unlike the regular season or maybe earlier in the playoffs, that you want to play with your food. I think that Miami is going to be one of those where they're going to capture and they're going to seize on the opportunity if you're not careful. So if they come back soon, I still think it's Boston's to win. I think they have better athletes, and usually in the NBA, that's what gets it done.
So
However,
Marcus
if they
Smart
delay,
is,
go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Chris.
I would say Marcus Smart is actually coming back. He's probable for game 2. Horford will have to sit for game 2.
Great.
I think they can
There it
replace
is.
Horford minutes better than they can replace Smart minutes, right? Because as much
Yep.
as I like seeing a little white sharpshooter out there in a Boston Celtics uniform with Peyton Pritchard, he's just getting picked on the defensive end. So
Right.
getting Marcus Smart out there, I think will hopefully tamp down Jimmy Butler, a.k.a. Jimmy Buckets, who he apparently becomes in playoff time. This is ridiculous. Chris, does Miami have enough if Jimmy Butler's got to score 40 every night and then they got to get something from somebody else? Does Miami ultimately have enough to win 4 games in this series?
Miami has to play exactly like they played in game 1. And I think that that's probably the best shooting that we will see from Miami is what we saw in game 1. They were phenomenal on those mid-range jumpers. Like 5 percentage points better than what they had been all season. They turned phenomenal offensive efficiency, which was crazy. I think getting Smart back helps with those drop down picks that Pritchard
Well, when
was
Smart comes
getting.
back, they're not going to drop anymore. I mean, that's in game 1 of this Heat series, the Celtics dropped more times than they switched, and that was like
Yeah.
the first time they had done that in months. And so the minute Marcus Smart comes back, you're not dropping on that pick and roll anymore with either Hero or
Yeah.
Butler. Marcus Smart
And you
switching them.
don't expect you don't expect a team to come out and shoot 56% on those
Well, of course not.
little 15 to 18-foot jumpers.
The Heat were
And-
rested. The Heat were well rested with that because the 76ers didn't even put up a fight in the final game of that series. So, I mean, the Heat were
Yeah.
absolutely well rested.
Yeah. So
Listen to me. I sound like I'm on Boston radio or something over here. I just need a Massachusetts accent right now.
I think Boston gets game 2 if they get Smart back. I think they can. I don't think Horford is as important in the Heat series as he was in the Bucks series.
Totally agree.
So I think they are right. They got Robert Williams back, so he can fill up those minutes.
Robert Williams was hot in the first quarter. What happened to that?
I don't know. They needed him to stay hot the whole game. Is what they really needed. They would have had a better.
Which is
shot,
not really
but-
his game. If you're
No.
looking for Robert Williams to be hot all 4 quarters, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. So I think they get back into the swing. I think they take game 2. I think Miami could take 1 in Boston. If so, that means it's probably going to go 7. If Boston gets both of those in a row in Boston, it'll be over in 6.
See, I'm with Father Pete. I think this is going 7, and I worry so much. We talk about culture on this podcast an awful lot. Heat culture kind of gets made fun of every once in a while, but it's absolutely real. I mean, and you got a guy named Gabe Vincent and a guy named Max Strus who are basically on veteran, or not veteran minimum, but like minimum level type deals, who are starting in the Eastern Conference Finals, and Ben Simmons got paid $35 million this year to not play. Okay, I mean, like, something is just wrong there in that scenario, that the Miami Heat can find guys that are getting paid minimum who could start for them in the conference finals, and everybody's trading this guy around who has so much potential, and they're paying him $35 million still on potential but not actually playing.
I mean, they're really starting to become the Spurs of the East, you know? Like,
yeah, that's a great example.
They are relevant every year, whether or not it's go back to when Bron was there with Wade, or all the Wade years, and Shaq being there. I mean,
Alonzo Mourning would like to work with you right now, Chris.
Yes, I'm sure he would. But like, so there is a culture there. It's gone a long time.
Ronnie Cycli? Can I interest you in some Ronnie Cycli days?
Ooh.
Coach Ron Rothstein patrolling the sidelines.
You're really going back to my days, aren't you? The Vern Fleming days.
There you go.
The Chuck
early
Person.
days Skybox cards, like the first year Skybox came out, with like the Magic Word expansion team, and one of the cards was just their logo.
Oh, but like, so the Heat have that culture now, and it's been there for a while. And listen, Celtics didn't have Smart, Heat didn't have Lowry, and so
I don't think they need Lowry though.
No, but like, he's still an all-star point guard. He's still legitimate baller.
I don't know. Father Pete, do you remember how much energy and discussion was given to where's Kyle Lowry going to go? What's happening with Kyle Lowry? And do you remember anything that Kyle Lowry did for the Heat at any point during this entire year or playoffs?
Not particularly, but he's been nursing that hamstring injury, which is like brutal for these guys to come back from. So I think it's all fair to say Kyle Lowry is a great leader, great NBA career. He's a world champion, but at the same time, I don't know that the Heat necessarily need him. Jimmy Buckets is the leader of that team.
I think Pat Riley is the leader of that team. I think Pat Riley's secretly still the leader of that team, right?
Yeah, you got a team there, like you said, Rod, having these guys on minimum starting, and you have all-stars playing 15 minutes because that's the type of team.
They just gave Duncan Robinson $85 million, and they're like, hey, yeah, that's cool, bud, but you're going to be over there on ice. You know what I mean? Like, the Heat just don't care, dude. The Heat just do not care.
No, it's about what goes on the court, and part of that is Riley, part of that is Spoelstra, and part of that is...
Spoelstra tried to fight Jimmy Butler earlier this year, and now they're about to make it to the NBA Finals.
And part of that is Jimmy Buckets. I mean, all three of those guys put it all on the line. They only want to win. They put in the work. And so that's why you see things like Spoelstra trying to fight Jimmy, which is just great, too.
That was great. That's one of my favorite clips of the year. All right, let's do this real quick, Father Pete. I want to move on to a couple of quick off-season check-ins with you while we have you here, but let's get your ultimate prediction. Who's going to end up playing in the finals here?
Okay, so if I got to put my money where my mouth is right now, I think it's probably going to be Boston and Golden State. Those would be the two I'd likely expect to see in the finals.
I think the boys up on Park Avenue in New York City would love to see that series as well. Chris, who you got?
So I want Boston versus Dallas.
Yes.
What we'll get is Boston versus Golden State because, as all you Wu-Tang fans know, there is the basketball Illuminati, and they already have it scripted.
All right, all of you proud residents of Texas, all you Mavericks fans, all you cowboy boot, 10-gallon hat wearing, big belt buckles, I'm your guy right here, Rod Morgan, Hot Rod, host of the Morgan You Know podcast, host of Yeah We Know in the Ring with Jimmy and Rod, host of Balls and Brew. I'm telling you right now, Mavericks beat your Warriors, championship medal be damned. Luka is possibly the second best player on the planet. Best player on the court wins. We spent early segments on this podcast. You guys were convincing me that Phoenix was actually a good team. I think they weren't, but you guys told me they were, and it didn't matter because Luka absolutely cut their heart out, stomped on it, then picked up what he stomped on and ate pieces of it in front of their children. All right? That guy seems to be on a mission. Give me Dallas.
Oh,
But
that was
not. I don't know.
great.
I don't know who I have winning yet. I don't know who I have winning yet because clearly I'm still a Celtics fan. But I just give me Celtics v Dallas. But let's go to a couple of teams that I think are absolutely fascinating. And Father Pete, we're going to give you most of the runway here because Chris and I spend a lot
Okay,
of time arguing about these teams. What in the
great.
world do you do if you are Daryl Morey and the Philadelphia 76ers with the mess that you created yourself by getting James Harden?
I had a professor back in school who said the following words, which I have always clung to: when things are complicated, which they clearly are with the Sixers, you break them into their parts so that you can kind of get a cleaner look at one part as opposed to the whole mess. I think when it comes to James Harden, it's really quite simple. You let him re-up for the 47 million this coming year, and then you let him walk. Listen, yeah, you let go of Seth Curry. I get it. That's a little bit of a bummer. And you let go of Ben Simmons, but Ben Simmons didn't play at all this year anyway, so technically you came out ahead this year. How much is Ben Simmons going to play again next year, coming off another back surgery? Who
He's not
knows?
going to. He's not going to. Spoiler.
So at the end of the day, Daryl Morey, yeah, he mucked it up a little bit. He lost Seth Curry, and I'm sure there's another pick in there somewhere. And he got James Harden, who was actually willing to play for them throughout the course of the season and probably next. So to me, you pay the man his money, the 47 million, and then you let him walk. You begin to say, all right, Maxi, and all right, Embiid, you guys got to figure something out. It's my job to go out and figure out who can be the third running mate on this whole thing. But like I think this whole James Harden situation's gotten overblown. Pay the man his money, let him move on, and let him go play with LeBron. LeBron seems to like to collect old players.
Well, Chris, let me ask you this. The Philadelphia 76ers, I think, clearly are willing to pay James Harden his money, being that Daryl Morey, president of basketball operations for Philadelphia, wore a T-shirt that says James Harden is my basketball Jesus when he talked at the Sloan Conference in Boston earlier this year, all right? So I don't think that's an issue. But it's actually up to James Harden. He has a player option. Chris, how worried should Philadelphia be that the man who quit on two different teams in 13 months might just say, you know what? I'm not going to sign that player option, and I'm going to become a full-fledged free agent because the Portland Trailblazers are willing to pay me a boatload of money.
Um, I would just have to take it on the chin. You don't want him dressing for you next year, and if this is the way it has to happen,
No. How likely
oh
of that of being a scenario do you think? I know that you're with Father Pete and I'm with Father Pete. I think
yeah,
everybody that doesn't really think giving James Harden a bunch of money is absolutely correct. But that doesn't matter. Chris, what I'm asking
no,
you is how likely do you think it is that James Harden will just pass up that money and go get money from
no,
someone
I
else?
don't think he'll pass up the money. I think he's going to go somewhere else, but I don't think he'll pass up that money because I don't think that his agent's going to get any kind of offer near that from anybody else after seeing what he's done the
Do you know who
last three
James Harden's
years.
agent is?
No.
James Harden.
Is it really?
Yes.
Yeah, then he should already know that he's not getting any offers like that. So he'll take
I
that
disagree.
money.
I disagree. This is the NBA, man. This is the NBA. Somebody's going to give that dude max dollars. Somebody that's not the Philadelphia 76ers is going to be willing to offer that guy 4 years max money.
Oh, you think it'll
Every
be the
listen,
Knicks?
everybody said this about Gordon. Excuse me. About Gordon Hayward. Now, these guys are not on the same level, but everybody said it about Gordon Hayward. When he turned down his option and walked away from the Celtics, everybody was like, no way Gordon Hayward gets money. And what happened? The Charlotte Hornets gave him 4 years, $113 million. How well has that worked out for the Charlotte Hornets? It hasn't. But guess what's still happening? Gordon Hayward is getting his money. James Harden will get his money. I think James Harden is going to walk away from the Philadelphia 76ers because if he thought what you guys think he thinks, that he's not going to get money from somebody else, he would have signed that player option the minute he got traded to Philadelphia and locked himself into $47 million. But he didn't do it for a reason. I think that dude's walking away.
He probably didn't do it because he was hoping Embiid would drag him to the finals. Then he would be.
He certainly didn't
guaranteed
put
that
up any
money.
effort. He certainly didn't put up any effort to try to get to the finals if that was something that he actually cared about.
Well, I know he didn't put up any effort. That's his problem. That's why I don't think anybody will be willing to give him $47 million. I think he should. If he walks away, he better be happy if someone gives him 30. Because he didn't put forward. He had one game where he looked like his old self from OKC, but even then, that's not enough. you got to put an effort. I think he was putting too much hope into Embiid getting them past that series and onto the finals.
You guys are talking about James Harden as if he is a rational person, right? You guys are talking about these NBA superstars as if they're a rational person. They're absolutely not. And these owners are not rational. That's why the salary cap exists. Otherwise, these guys would give him even more money than they already give him. I'm telling you, James Harden's going to have no problem getting whatever money he wants this offseason.
Rod, if that is in fact what happens, then I'm going to call you the Swami, because here's my thing. I think what's more likely is that Harden gets Chris Paul money. If you remember last year, right? Chris Paul ends up having one of these kind of balloon years that would have been this year, and instead he re-signs with Phoenix with that kind of 4-year deal we were talking about for just about $100 million. And so I think to myself, that's probably the market correction that's coming for James Harden. Now, he might find value in that because it gives him years of security as opposed to 1 year and I don't know what's coming. So if I'm James Harden, though, I re-sign for 47, and then because I have the belief that I'm going to be able to prove my worth, and then ultimately I'm going to get one more max deal. Some team's going to line me up for 200, but right now, if he doesn't sign that, he's getting no more than $120 million, which, by the way, sounds crazy for me to say, but he gets no more than $120 million, where he would probably, if he's a competitor, and I think he is, begins to think to himself, I'm leaving $80 million on the table, which is no bueno.
I'm not, competitor, man. I worry about that. I just worry about that with a lot of guys, and that will take me to New Jersey. Actually, now they're Brooklyn, excuse me. But Brooklyn GM Sean Marks did his postseason exit interview, and Kyrie's name was, of course, brought up. And Sean Marks decided to dodge the question by saying, well, Kyrie, yeah, but we also have a lot of other free agents, and we're going to have to think, and do our evaluations. But ultimately what we're looking for are guys who want to be part of something, guys who want to be part of something bigger than themselves, guys who are here, and guys who are accountable. Is Sean Marks trying to say something to Kyrie Irving, Father P, or am I reading too much into that?
I think he probably is, but the press was interviewing the wrong guy. If they want to know what Kyrie's going to do, they should have been interviewing Kevin Durant.
That's good.
If Kevin Durant had said, we want players who are available, that would suggest to me that Kyrie's going to be more available. But instead, poor Sean Marks, who seems to be the only one not in on the joke because he's not in control. Sean Marks ain't out there shooting jumpers. And so I just think, fine. That's like a business jargony kind of speech that people tend to give off at the end of the season. 1, to save their job, and 2, to sell tickets for the future. I just don't see him being able to truly affect the type of change he suggests that he can.
Well, I guess my question would be, did Sean Marks clear that with Kyrie Irving, who at the end of the year made himself assistant owner? So that would mean essentially that Kyrie is above Sean Marks. So, Chris, do you think that Kyrie approved that statement?
My question would be, are we sure he's talking about Kyrie and someone being accountable and not somebody like Ben Simmons?
Oh, there's no chance Ben Simmons plays next year for at least until the All-Star break. We're going to go through this whole thing over again because of this back surgery. Ben Simmons is trying to figure out how to be the first guy in NBA history to live out a full max contract and get every red cent of the money but not actually play basketball.
Listen, if I was Brooklyn, I would do anything I could to sell somebody on Simmons and trade him, get him off my roster. I think they are a better team with Kyrie still on the roster playing with Kevin Durant than they are trying to get Ben Simmons back on the court.
Well, I don't think Ben Simmons wants to get back on the court, so I think you're absolutely right there. But the rub is I'm not entirely sure how often Kyrie wants to be on the court either, right? We know Kevin Durant wants to be out there and giving it his all, and maybe they'll get some better pieces around him and not worry so much about what those guys are going to be for their team. We know Steve Nash isn't going anywhere, even though Kyrie Irving essentially made himself coach as well and didn't mention Steve Nash's name when he was talking about the offseason plans.
Listen, I hate to say it because you know my feelings about Kyrie. I am not a fan of his. But I got to say that Brooklyn was a better team when he was on the roster compared to when he wasn't. And that makes a difference. They were a better team with him there than they were with him gone.
Listeners, I apologize for that extended long beep that you just heard right there, but there will be absolutely no praise of Kyrie Irving allowed on this podcast. So Jimmy, I'm asking you to bleep that out. All right, I think that's a good note. Leave them laughing, right? I learned that from George Costanza. He used to leave meetings on Seinfeld right after even if the meeting just started. If he got him on a good joke, he'd walk out. So leave him laughing. Father Pete, thank you so much for being willing to come back on and talk some hoop with us here. And I know that the academic year is has just wrapped up, so maybe a little bit of R&R for you this summer, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. It's we're settling into, as I like to call it, my summer rest.
There we go. That's good. But I know you are going to be excited for college basketball to roll around next year, and I know you're going to be just as excited as us to see who ends up in the NBA Finals, and you'll be watching. And who knows, perhaps I'll send the bat signal out, and we'll get you on around the end of the NBA Finals or one more time before the season starts next year.
Sounds great. I'd be honored, man.
All right, Chris, my man, thank you so much as always for co-hosting, and I think we'll just go ahead and end the podcast here. So as always, you have the final word.
Goodbye, Internet.